The Hunger Games, Harry Potter and Twilight are just some examples of book series that adapted their entire story to the big screen, but there are also a number of other multi-story novels that only got their first book made into a movie. So let's discuss what those are and why they were cancelled. Eragon is the first book in the Inheritance Cycle series. While Christopher Paolini had only written Eragon and Eldest by the time the film was released, Brissinger was in the process of being written and Inheritance concluded the saga, so clearly 20th Century were looking to adapt them all. In fact, they actually planned on filming Eldest and Brinsinger back to back. Now, a lot of movies on this list were cancelled due to the poor financial box office, but Eragon didn't actually do terribly. It made a modest $250 million on a budget of $100 million. On top of that, this was during a time where DVD sales were pretty much like a second wind for studios. So Eragon actually made an additional $87 million in its first 2 months being released on DVD. So it seems like the cancellation for Eldest was largely due to the disappointing reviews. But for those hoping to see this book series adapted to screen, in 2022, a show on Disney Plus was announced to be in development, and in February of 2025, author Christopher Paolini said it's still on track, but can't say anything more until a major contract gets signed.
Are you ready to try again, Dragon Rider?
Barsoom is an 11-book series by Edgar Rice Burroughs that only adapted A Princess of Mars, or what the film titled it, John Carter. At the time, not adjusting for inflation, John Carter was the third most expensive movie ever made, only behind Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides and Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. So on a budget north of $250 million, it made $284, but when all was said and done, lost Disney somewhere between $150 and $265 million dues. One of the main reasons people believed it flopped was due to the marketing. There was an inexperienced team involved in this department, leading to criticism towards the trailers and posters that were seen as uninspiring and lacked clarity as to what the film was about. There were title changes from the books A Princess of Mars to John Carter of Mars because they felt the novel's title wouldn't interest boys, but then they removed the of Mars because they didn't think it would appeal to females. Closer to the release date, Disney saw the projected box office and were expecting the film to flop, so actually pulled back on marketing to save costs. When it was released, the reviews were mixed, but even if they were great, the box office disaster is clearly the main reason the Gods of Mars novel wasn't adapted. Disney wanted this movie to be their Star Wars, but around the time of John Carter's marketing, the company's CEO Bob Iger was in the process of trying to buy Star Wars, so they became more interested in spending their money on the well-known IP rather than continuing the Barsoom series.
You never found the medallion?
No. Northern Lights, also known as The Golden Compass, is the first book in a trilogy, but only the first was adapted into a movie. On a budget of $180 million, the film only grossed $70 million in the United States. So to make their money back, New Line Cinemas sold the international film rights. But when it went on to make $260 million overseas, the studio didn't get that money. So there's the first problem. The Golden Compass didn't make them any money. And the second problem was that unfortunately it was mixed reviewed. However, because the film did well internationally, there were strong talks about getting a movie version of The Subtle Knife and The Amber Spyglass. In the end, New Line didn't think it was worth pursuing, but apparently in 2019, BBC Studios adapted all books into a TV show called His Dark Materials, which I had absolutely no idea about. Starred Daphne Kane. James McAvoy was in it. What other X-Men actors did they get? Lin-Manuel Miranda's in it. He's not in X-Men, but he's in this show. It's well reviewed too. That's interesting. Well, if you don't like reading, you can watch Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy in a 23-episode show.
Is that the Skraeling who mapped the currents of the Great Northern Ocean?
I Am Number 4 is book 1, The Power of 6 is book 2, The Rise of 9 is book 3, The Fall of 5 is book 4. This franchise has a weirder naming system than The Fast and Furious. But unlike The Fast and Furious, it didn't get nearly as many films. Marty Noxon, who was one of the screenplay writers on the I Am Number 4 movie, said that the planned sequels were shelved due to the disappointing $180 million box office. This was also released in an era where every single young adult novel was being made into a film, and not all were landing review-wise. So one of the reasons for the underwhelming box office could be due to the fatigue, in the same way some people have with comic book movies these days. The star of I Am Number 4, Alex Pettyfer, actually started his film career in a movie based on a different book series, that being the Alex Rider franchise. At the time of Stormbreaker's release, author Anthony Horowitz had written 6 books in the series, so there were clearly expectations to get to those if the first film did well. Unfortunately, it didn't do well at the box office at all, only making $20 million on a budget of $40. Horowitz, who actually wrote the screenplay as well, admitted that his novels probably just didn't translate well to the big screen. The small screen, however, is a different story, because Alex Rider got a 3-season show starting in 2020. The first season is based on the second book, the second season skipped the third book and went to book 4, then the third and final season adapted book 5. Sorry book 3 and 6 to 14, it looks unlikely we'll ever see you in live action.
And I suppose you want one as well, do you?
Stormbreaker only made $20 million on a budget of $40, but City of Ember only made $18 on a budget of $55. So I don't really need to explain why The People of Sparks, The Prophet of Yonwood, or The Diamond of Darkhold weren't also made into movies. After watching the trailer, I feel like the poor box office might be due to the marketing. It's hard to tell who the movie is for. You have 2 young adults in the lead, but the trailer focused on the well-known stars like Bill Murray, Tim Robbins, and Toby Jones. If this was supposed to be a movie for young adults, that demographic probably has no idea who those actors are. Fortunately for the people involved, it didn't seem to harm their careers, with the director going on to do the more recent Ghostbusters films, and Saoirse Ronan becoming a well-known actor.
But we've got to tell them somehow. We need to tell them what's up here.
I spoke about box office disappointments potentially having something to do with young adult novel fatigue. Well, I feel like the 5th wave, dare I say, missed the wave entirely on the young adult novel era as the film was released in 2016. To be fair, it couldn't have been released much earlier, as the first book only came out 3 years prior, but the novel's trilogy was already complete just after the release of the first film. I say first film, but it's the only novel they adapted, and the reason for this was due to the box office only making its money back at best, and unfortunately, it wasn't well reviewed either. While the sequels were never greenlit, nor has there been any word from Sony about the future of this franchise since the release, you would think if the 5th wave performed better at the box office and in reviews, we would have the trilogy wrapped up by now on the big screen.
Let's worry about that tomorrow, and just go get something to eat.
Artemis Fowl did not bomb at the box office, because COVID meant it couldn't be released in cinemas, so it went straight to Disney+. Though by November of that year, it was only the 18th most streamed original movie of 2020, and at that point, the film had already been out for 5 months. There were movies on the list that had been out for only a couple of weeks that had been viewed more times. For something that's targeted to a younger audience, based on a notable book series, and released during a time when literally all anyone was doing was watching things at home, Artemis Fowl should have been at least top 5. So what was the reason for it doing so badly that Disney has even since removed it from their own streaming service? Well, unfortunately, it wasn't very well reviewed. So for all those reasons, it's no surprise that the next 10 sequel books were cancelled, which would have been disappointing to fans of the novel, for which there are many, as the first was not only voted Puffin Book's best book of all time in 2010, but the series has sold over 25 million copies in 40 languages.
It appears to me like you got a big problem on your hands.
The Adventures of Tintin is a rare example of a film on this list that actually did pretty well financially and critically. So why hasn't it gotten the sequel set up at the end of the film, where Tintin and Haddock begin an adventure to find the unicorn shipwreck? Steven Spielberg, who directed the first film, would be producing the sequel, with Peter Jackson taking his place, intending on starting it once he completed the Hobbit trilogy. In 2012, the script had been written, with plans to start the motion capture process in the middle of the year, hoping to then release it by late 2014, mid-2015. Spielberg said the movie would be drawing inspiration from 2 of the books, featured detectives Thompson and Thompson in a much bigger role, plus introduced Professor Calculus. They were even thinking about a 3rd and 4th film which would have had the Blue Lotus. By the middle of 2015, the date they intended to release this sequel, filming hadn't even started, but the title was revealed, Tintin and the Temple of the Sun. Over the years, the filmmakers just keep saying that they're working on it, but nothing is eventuated, with the latest comments coming in June 2024 from Haddock actor Andy Serkis saying that Peter Jackson is still working on the sequel. Will this ever happen? Maybe, but Tintin feels like the type of franchise where you can just jump right into the middle of a story, so even if it is a direct sequel, I don't think it would matter if you've forgotten what happened in the first.
Almost there, Mr. Tintin!
Are you sure we're on course?
Most of Stephen King's books have been made into movies, but his 8-novel Dark Tower series only got 1. Now, from my understanding, as someone who hasn't seen the film, the 2017 movie takes elements from a few of the books, but there was still plenty of story left to be told. The drawing of the 3 book would have been the main inspiration for the sequel, but a very underwhelming box office, plus very underwhelming reviews, plus admission that they should have stuck closer to the source material, including making it a dark R-rated horror, is why future plans ended. Amazon bought the rights the following year with the intention of adapting the series to TV, but not much movement has occurred since.
Can you see it? Of course you can't. Because nothing is there.
All I know about The Giver is that apparently Taylor Swift was in it. While each book within the Giver Quartet are set within the same futuristic world, they each follow a different protagonist, so maybe the studio's intention was to only adapt the first book, then if it did well, perhaps make the others. Unfortunately, like most other movies on this list, it didn't do well financially or critically, and thus those future plans were not discussed.
She's the one they all talk about.
Mortal Engines was clearly trying to replicate the success of The Lord of the Rings, and they did everything to try and make that possible. I mean, they were adapting a book, Peter Jackson was producing, half the cast from Middle-earth were in it, and they even filmed it in New Zealand. But the Mortal Engines quartet only became a one-et because on a budget between 100 to 150 million, it only made 83.7 worldwide. It was estimated that Mortal Engines lost Universal Pictures about $175 million dues. For those who don't know, the budget doesn't always factor in the marketing, which for a movie like this would have been around 100 million. On top of that, cinemas take a percentage of that box office, so if movies aren't making at least 3 times their budget, there's a very good chance it lost money. While the movie didn't do well review-wise either, author Philip Reeve tweeted saying, "I watched Mortal Engines twice this week, and it's brilliant. Christian Rivers has done a fantastic job. A huge, visually awesome action movie with perfect pace and a genuine emotional core. See it on the biggest screen you can." It is, however, worth noting that these comments were made before the film's release. It's not uncommon for people close to the project to say positive things to drive up ticket sales. But at the same time, maybe Phil really did feel that way. Movies are subjective. I don't even have an opinion on this film because I haven't seen it, nor have I seen The Lord of the Rings for that matter. I have seen the second Hobbit though. There are 6 books in Rochelle Mead's young adult paranormal romance series, Vampire Academy, and it not only had a crack at adapting it to the big screen, but the small screen too. After a disappointing 15 million box office result on a budget of 30 and negative reviews for the film, it got rebooted on TV, but that was also short-lived, only lasting 10 episodes over 1 season. Unlike the film, the show took inspiration from the entire book saga, rather than just the first novel. Both iterations obviously wanted to keep the series going, but there needed to be proof that there was enough demand out there. For that reason, Prager Entertainment created an Indiegogo fundraising campaign to fund production costs, but were unable to reach its goal. As for the TV show, after its cancellation, the developers were shopping the series around to other networks for future seasons, but this too was unsuccessful. I just feel like Vampire Academy is another example of coming out a few years too late. If this had to come out in 2010 during the height of Twilight, the studio would have been able to capitalize on both the young adult and vampire craze.
We can't just keep running away, at least until we know what we're running away from.
Disney had 2 attempts at adapting the first book in the Time Quintet series. The first attempt at A Wrinkle in Time was in 2003 for a straight-to-DVD movie, then again in 2018. While the latest attempt didn't really set up the film to have sequels, and even changed elements that have ramifications on the future novels, I guarantee if A Wrinkle in Time made more than 133 million and was received more positively, we would have at least gotten a wind in the door.
You're kidding.
Do I look like I'm kidding?
A little. I'm not.
Cornelia Funke wrote an incredibly popular book in 1997 called Dragon Rider, and because of this, when she published her Inkheart trilogy a few years later, New Line Cinema bought the film rights to those fantasy novels with the intention of bringing them all to the big screen. Unfortunately, Cornelia didn't get to see Inkheart in cinemas because she passed away before the release. And unfortunately for the rest of us, we didn't get to see Ink Spell or Ink Death in movie form because of the first film's box office.
Are you sure you want to do this? I mean, you remember what happens at the end of the book.
I didn't even know Jumper was based on a book, let alone a part of a 4-novel series. While making the first film, producer Lucas Foster said they had too many ideas that this franchise needed to be at least 3 movies. So that's what they planned. Even before the fourth book was published that sees David and Millie's daughter teleport to space, director Doug Liman said that among the ideas were for jumpers learning the ability to jump between planets and time. On top of this, Millie would learn to become a jumper, like she does in the sequel novel, Reflexes. It's unclear as to why these sequels never happened, because it made a decent $225 million on a budget of $85. But review-wise, it was mixed to negative, so maybe 20th Century Fox feared this could affect Reflex's box office. There was, however, a TV spin-off series based on the third novel, Impulse, which is why the show is called Impulse.
Did you think you were the only one?
I've never heard of a Beautiful Creatures movie or book, but after doing some research on it, here are some fun facts about it. Carmi Garcia and Margaret Stoll wrote the first 563-page novel in 12 weeks. Beautiful Creatures is a part of the 4-book Caster Chronicles series. The movie stars names like Alden Ehrenreich, Jeremy Irons, and Viola Davis, and it apparently made $60.1 million at the box office on a budget of $60.0 million. Warner Bros. And Alcon Entertainment actually acquired the rights to all 4 books, but the box office disappointment, plus the fact that the first film had changed too much from the first book, meant it would be difficult to bring the sequels to the big screen.
Accept it, sweetheart. There's nothing you can do!
The Ender's Game series currently has 16 novels, 13 short stories, 47 comics, and audio play, but only 1 movie. After said film lost the studio an estimated $68 million, the sequel novel, which had already been written into a screenplay, was not filmed. Screenwriter and director Gavin Hood actually had the script written before filming began on the first movie. He wanted to film them both simultaneously, but Lionsgate didn't give them enough in the budget to make that possible. So why did the franchise end after 1 book? Well, here's one reason. These days, there are people who like to say, go woke, go broke, when a movie with a diverse cast does financially poorly. But back in 2013, there were a number of people who boycotted Ender's Game because the book's author, Orson Scott Card, was publicly against homosexuality and same-sex marriage. This generated a lot of attention, including petitions and the trending hashtag #SkipEndersGame, which was started by the Geeks Out organisation, an LGBTQ+ community empowering queer geeks. Lionsgate and producers realised they had to address this and noted that their views did not align with Orson's. But it was kind of too late. As Ender's Game fits into the category of a movie that geeks would see, it's likely many straight geeks supported their fellow LGBTQ+ geeks in not seeing the film. Now, I'm not saying this is the entire reason for the film bombing at the box office, or if it even had much of an impact at all, but if people these days claim that movies failed because of wokeness, then maybe it goes both ways.
What is woke?
Before the Mortal Instruments City of Bones film was released, Constantine Films announced that City of Ashes was in development with the entire cast and director returning. Not only that, but Sigourney Weaver was signed on to join that sequel. They'd even planned out when and where they would be filming it. As for the first film, it made an okay but not great $95 million on a budget of $60. Negative reviews would have contributed to the lower than expected expectations, but Constantine Films said that the popularity of the book series was there to warrant the sequel. With filming on City of Ashes planned to begin only a month after the City of Bones' release, the production company decided to put that on pause a few days before to give them time to make sure this film would receive a better financial and critical reception. Head of Film and TV at Constantine Films, Martin Moskowitz, said that this issue may have been due to marketing it to the wrong audience. Which, I mean, maybe, but it also has 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. 3 months after filming was expected to begin, the series author, Cassandra Clare, seemed almost glad that they were taking their time to reassess things, because she said, quote, "I really think fans wouldn't have been happy with the screenplay as it was." One of the complaints that fans of the books noted about the first film was that it strayed away from the source material quite a bit, so Cassandra was hoping that the sequel would be closer to the novel. By 2014, Harold Schwartz dropped out as director so he could focus on other projects. Then by the 1-year anniversary of the City of Bones movie, it was confirmed that the sequel script was still being rewritten. But the following month, it was announced that the City of Ashes film would be scrapped in favour of rebooting the book series into a TV show. And Shadowhunters ran for 55 episodes over 3 seasons between 2016 and 2019, and seems to have taken inspiration from all of the books.
Kind of a risk, wasn't it?
Well, this may come as a surprise, but I actually do listen to some of the things you tell me.
Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, is a misleading title for 2 reasons. 1, it's not the first epic movie, that was released 10 years earlier, and 2, Captain Underpants only got 1 movie. Now, the film may have taken inspiration from a number of the books, but DreamWorks were clearly setting this up to be a franchise of films. Though, like most other films on this list, the box office is the main problem. While only spending $38 million to make it, the box office return generated $125 million, which didn't really scream make a sequel movie immediately, but because it was well reviewed, it did scream continue this universe on TV, getting 48 episodes and 3 specials on Netflix.
Never underestimate the power of underwear.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy ends with the Heart of Gold deciding to go to the restaurant at the end of the galaxy, which is the title of Doug Adams' second novel in the 6-book saga. The franchise actually started as a radio sitcom before being adapted to page, but nevertheless, the first film didn't make enough at the box office to warrant a sequel. While many of the cast said they would be willing to return should a sequel come to be, it doesn't seem like demand is there for a continuation. If we do see anything under this title again, it will almost certainly be a reboot, probably on TV, like most other entries on this list.
What did you have in mind?
I know there's a great restaurant at the end of the universe.
We're in an era where everything is getting reboots, sequels, remakes, and spin-offs, and for a lot of the book series I've mentioned, they've either gone on to get a TV adaptation, or are getting a TV adaptation. Maybe that's just the best format to adapt book series into. I mean, even Harry Potter is getting a TV adaptation, and those films actually worked financially and critically. So those are some of the book series that only adapted the first novel into a movie, but I've also made a video on other movies that set up a franchise but ended after 1 movie, plus the same for superhero films, which you can check out in the playlist. But thanks for watching, let me know in the comments which of these book series you wish kept going or had another crack at. And don't forget to absolutely obliterate those like, hype, subscribe and share buttons. I'm just kidding, only do it with enough force that it registers. I don't want any of you breaking whatever device you're watching this on.